specifically why I'm here. So let me get started. If I can negotiate this thing. There we go. Okay, so how does Utah OSHA, or OSHA in general, apply to local governments in Utah? There's a lot of confusion about this issue. I've talked to governments that tell me that they have no OSHA programs because OSHA doesn't apply to them. So that is a misinformation that's going around. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons that I think that it's going around. So before I talk about what Utah OSHA does, I kind of need to get everybody on the same level as far as understanding what is OSHA and how OSHA operates in Utah. So this first slide shows all of the state plan states in the United States, and there's Utah in alphabetical order. The reason that I show you this is that a lot of people don't realize that OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is actually a federal government agency. And it became a federal government agency in 1970. It was signed into law by President Nixon. And at that time, there were a number of states who were already running their own OSHA-like program. And so many of those states said, hey, wait a minute, we want to continue running our own program. And federal OSHA said, okay, as part of the OSHA Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, we will allow states who wish to continue running their own program, or those that want to start running their own program, to run their own occupational safety and health program. They have to apply to the federal government. They have to go through a vetting program. Utah started becoming a state plan in 1985, and we have been ever since. So state plans are required to be at least as effective as federal OSHA. And as we'll talk about a little later, that can actually change. One thing I wanted to point out in this list that's up, there are 5 states that have local government-only programs. The reason they are listed separately like this is that they're actually federal states, but those 5 states in the federal system have a local government program. It's a small OSHA program, and it's voluntary in their state. So the next list here, these are all of the federal OSHA states. Now, if you'll notice, there's a couple of federal OSHA states around Utah. Idaho and Colorado, specifically, are federal OSHA states. The rest of the states that Utah has around us are state plans, just like us. And the reason I point this out is that in federal OSHA states, federal OSHA does not have any jurisdiction over local government employees. And so therefore, in all of these states that are listed, except the ones that say local government, with little brackets behind them, there is no OSHA program for local governments. Those employees are simply not covered by OSHA standards, and they have no protection under OSHA standards. They also have no rights and no recourse under OSHA standards. The local governments in those states, unless you're in one of those local government states, do not have any statutes or anything that monitor their safety and health for their employees, and I think that's tragic. Also, one thing I'd like to point out is Florida in this list. In 2000, the federal OSHA program evaluated Florida and decided they were not being as effective as federal OSHA, and so they canceled the Florida state plan in 2000. This list, some of these states may at some time in the future do their own application to federal OSHA to be a state plan, and there's other states in that previous list that may at some time in the future be judged not as effective as federal OSHA and be put back into this list. So these lists aren't static. They do change occasionally. I just wanted to point that out to you. So why does it matter to local governments whether Utah is a state plan or a federal state? Well, the big thing is that because we are a state plan, all local government employees are protected under State of Utah OSHA. That's us, Utah State OSHA. We enforce OSHA laws as well, federal OSHA laws that we have adopted as a state plan, as well as some various Utah state OSHA laws. So federal OSHA states the employees have no protection for local government employees. Under state plans, they have protection for local government employees. And when you consider what percentage of the workers in a state are local government employees, that includes all state agencies, county agencies, cities, special improvement districts, school districts, anybody who is a subdivision of the state government, all of those people, that's quite a percentage of the workers. So did Jason have a question he wants to ask? There was something that popped up here. No? Okay.
Just sending out a chat to everybody to have them type their questions in the chat box if they have any.
Okay. So for those states who do not have a local government OSHA program, do they have better statistics because they don't have a government agency overseeing them? Well, actually, the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually shows that in those states that local government employees are not any safer. In fact, they're actually more likely to have serious injuries, illness, or death than local government employees in states who have state plans. And that is true in Utah as well as the states surrounding us. Local government employees often have the same functions that private employees do. And in fact, I found through working with local government employers that many of their employees have a number of functions that are unusual and not related to each other. In a business, most businesses concentrate on one particular activity. Local governments have all kinds of activities, and they tend to go from one thing to the next and back. So if you want to look at how your particular group is doing against the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can pick something like, for instance, maybe you have a fleet repair shop. So you can go into the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look at private automobile repair shops and look at what their hazards, their serious injury and death figures are, and you can compare them to yours. And most of the time in Utah, local government employees will compare pretty favorably to the private sector. But in states that do not have state plans that are in the federal plans, they're usually a lot higher. The statistics are a lot more scary for local government in federal states. So one of the things that I think, the reasons that I talk to local government people and their employees and they say, oh, we're not subject to OSHA, one of the reasons that I think that's true, that misunderstanding, is that we do have two states, Colorado and Idaho, surrounding Utah. And in Colorado and Idaho, that statement is true. There is no OSHA coverage and no OSHA enforcement for local government employees. If you have somebody coming from one of those states and they tell you that, then they are right in that state, but not in Utah. And also not correct in Wyoming, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. And by the way, the entire West Coast are state plans also. So how is Utah's state plan administered and funded? Well, Utah OSHA is one of the 5 sections of the Utah Labor Commission. Industrial accidents, spoiler and elevators, anti-discrimination, and then all of those sections have the adjudication section that handle all of our cases. Utah OSHA has some pretty close ties to these other sections, specifically industrial accidents. If you fill out a workers' comp form, it goes to industrial accidents and they keep track of it. Utah OSHA has access to that database. So we can go in and see what employers specifically, what kinds of industries are experiencing high injuries and illnesses and deaths. And that's one of the ways that the compliance side of my office figures out who to go look at. So we do have some ties with some of those other agencies, but we are a division of the Labor Commission. So in Utah, and I believe this is probably true with the rest of state plans, Federal OSHA funds our office 50%, and then the Labor Commission and the general fund of Utah is the other 50% of the funding. And the Labor Commission maintains the day-to-day oversight of our operations, and we also direct ourselves as a state plan. However, we do have to report our statistics to federal OSHA, and they do program auditing and oversight to make sure that we are being as effective as federal OSHA. And as it is in many state plans, we actually do more than federal OSHA. We are pretty efficient at using our funding. So Utah's state plan is alive and well, and we're doing, I think, quite well. By the way, we get a question a lot. When we get citations from private companies, where does that citation fee go? Does it go back into our program? No, it goes to the Utah State General Fund. So there is no incentive for our compliance officers to actually go out and collect citations. So, you know, if that's something that's interesting to you, that's not where it goes. It just goes to the State General Fund. So OSHA's been a state plan since 1985, and we have two sections to our office. We have the compliance section, which is probably where everybody is aware of OSHA. They're the ones that come up to your employer. They don't make an appointment, they just show up. They have accident investigations, complaint investigations, planned and inspections, and they do issue citations. By the way, the compliance section cannot issue a warning. They have to, by law, issue a citation if they see something against OSHA standards. And so I have actually, when I was in the compliance section, people would say, well, there's somebody that got a warning. Nobody gets a warning. If they're thinking it's a warning, then they probably were working with consultation. So consultation and education services section is the division that I'm in now. We come only when the employer requests. It's a free confidential visit. It is the employer directing the visit. In other words, the employer tells us what it is that they want us to look at or want us to do. Everything from a walkthrough, like we did, all of us used to be compliance officers. So we can walk through like we did as a compliance officer. We can review programs. We can look at things and see if there are programs that you need to have and help you write them. I refuse to write them for you, but I will give you resources where you can write them yourselves, and I will help direct that. So that is what the consultation section does. But like I said, nobody knows about it, probably because we have no budget for advertising. So in Utah, all employees are covered under OSHA. Local government employees are protected under Utah OSHA. Private sector businesses are protected under Utah OSHA. The federal government employees in Utah, such as people who work for the post office and Tooele Army Depot, places like that, federal OSHA actually comes over from Denver and inspects those places. Utah OSHA does not. We have no jurisdiction over federal employees. So OSHA's basic tenet is that employees have the right to a safe and healthy workplace, and that's the point of OSHA. So as a state plan, Utah OSHA enforces both adopted federal OSHA codes and Utah OSHA codes. Now the advantage of us just adopting federal OSHA codes is that you can go to that website, www.osha.gov, on the right there. They have a huge amount of information and resources that federal OSHA has developed. Because we have just simply adopted the federal OSHA codes, go into that website and everything applies with only a couple of exceptions. So that is a great resource. Some other state plans have decided to write their own entire book, and we felt like that would be a waste of time since federal OSHA actually done that. There are some Utah OSHA codes that are over and above Fed OSHA. For instance, if you look out in the Uinta Basin, we have a division of our own that talks about oil and gas drilling. So that is one example of OSHA codes that are specific to Utah. If you want to see those, you can go to the URL at the bottom of the page. That is the Utah OSHA code rule page. If you just take off the UOSHA rules.html, then you end up at the main page for Utah OSHA. So there's where you can find those things. Another really good reason to ask for consultation before you have OSHA show up and cite you, the compliance side. In Utah, and I believe in all of the other states, when Utah OSHA and other state plans issue a citation to a local government, there is no monetary penalty assigned, because that would be like the taxpayers paying the taxpayers. So then you come up with people asking, well, what makes the government, the local governments, comply with the OSHA citation if there's no money attached? Well, it is required to comply with the citation, even if there isn't any money attached. If the local government didn't apply, then the thing would probably go up to the Attorney General's office and end up being forced on them by them. But the big reason that you don't want to be cited by Utah OSHA is that if they cite you, that becomes record. That public record, if you go to the OSHA webpage, the federal OSHA webpage, all state plans report to federal OSHA, you can go on there and do an establishment search and look for any entity, an employer, a private one, or a public one, and you can find if OSHA has ever cited that employee, and you can actually search it back to 1971. So it never goes away. It's there. It's permanent. And that's a public record. And in this day and age where people are really tech savvy and go on the web and look at things like this, a lot of people will go into something like that and use that to make decisions on do they want to move to that city or county? Do they want to maybe become an employee of that city or county? And just for the fact of having a basically negative report out there on the web about your city and county or whatever, it's out there. So consultation is a good place to start because we do our thing. It's free, it's proactive, and our records never become part of that searchable database. They're always confidential. So that's a really good reason to ask for help. So what is a consultation, education, visit, or service? Well, here's a list of the things that we often do. There's a safety and a health side to OSHA, in case you hadn't noticed. So we can do these kinds of activities on both the safety and the health side. A lot of times our visits start with a just initial walk around, and that actually helps me because just saying that you're a city does not really tell me a lot, because there's a huge difference in what cities handle. Some cities handle everything from street construction to sewer, roads, water conditioning, all that kind of stuff. And other cities have taken those different components and given them to somebody else. So doing an initial visit as walking through your facilities actually helps me to understand what it is your specific place does. So the next thing on the list, advice on how OSHA things work, how they apply to your particular activities. Another thing that many of our people have done have been to ask us to come back maybe a year or two later, because a new set of eyes is always a useful thing. If you have somebody that works in a place, a lot of times they get so used to seeing the hazards that they just disappear. And so having a new set of eyes come by and look at it is really a useful thing. Even if you have other places like maybe the local government trust or other insurance agencies or state risk management or somebody come by, each time one of those people comes through, you have to remember they're seeing a snapshot of what your operation does. They're not going to see everything you do. They're not going to see the conditions that exist all the time in your workplace. So the more people that you can have to walk through and look around, the more consistent you're likely to be, because each one of those people will find a different thing. So cost-cutting reasons to emphasize employee safety and health. There's a lot of cost-cutting reasons. What makes sense in business also makes sense in government. There have been many, many studies, usually done by insurance companies. None of them have been done by OSHA. But there have been many studies that I'm aware of over the last 20 years that have gone out and looked at, if you spend money on your employee safety and health, is that actually going to benefit your business? And all of these studies have been done in private business. And they've all come back with very positive information. Most of them have said that for every dollar that you spend on your safety and health program, they will come back in your bottom line. In other words, you'll make more money by 4 times, and I've seen some say 6 times. So 6 times that dollar or 4 times that dollar in your bottom line. Now, in public sector, we don't really have a bottom line because we're not making anything or producing anything that we sell. However, the way that I encourage people to look at it in the public sector is that you are saving the taxpayers money. It costs money for government to have safety and health-related injuries and illnesses and deaths. All of those costs that a private business encounters when they have those things are also encountered by the public sector. It may not show readily in your bottom line, as in you don't actually go out of business if this happens, whereas a private company may totally just sink them. But all of these issues you will see, and it will end up lowering the amount of money that you can spend on other parts of your needs. And it's somewhat insidious, hard to track and follow. And there's some things that we call hidden costs that are related to that. For instance, if you take care of your employees by putting in safety and health programs that are effective, you're going to make your employees more satisfied for working there. And because of that, you're going to retain them, and you're going to have a higher loyalty of your employees. If people are more satisfied and happy in a workplace, they're going to do better work. They're going to make more effort to do better work. So this is a huge hidden part of safety and health injuries and illnesses, because when people don't feel like they're being taken care of, they don't give you their best work. Also, the big thing that you save is lower workers' comp premiums and fewer absent employees. But all of those things kind of add up to increased productivity in your employees. You need fewer employees to do more things. And the people that you do have a higher competency and experience level, and your organization just simply does better. And it's really hard to quantify that. But this has been studied over and over nationally, and it's certainly true. So there's some good cost-cutting reasons if you have to have this conversation with anybody that controls the money about why it is you're trying to get them to spend money on your safety and health program. There is some really good statistics over the years as to why you should do that. So if you want to contact me, there's my information. You can also contact the consultation division in my office, the main number there, the 530 number. That number for me is actually my cell phone, and I do not answer it or talk to people while I'm driving, which I do drive around the state a bit. I also don't answer it when I'm doing things like last week I was teaching a 10-hour class for West Jordan City, so I can't answer the phone while I'm teaching. If I don't answer, leave me a message. I try to get back to my messages within that day or at the least the next day. So there's my contact information, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to.
All right. Thanks, Evelyn. I appreciate that. That's great information. I'm going to go ahead. I came up with just a quick poll, and I'm going to open that poll right now. And the question was just asking if they have ever worked with Utah OSHA consultation or another OSHA consultation before. Just kind of take the temperature of the group and see how many have done that. Let's see. So what it looks like we've got some work we can do out there. We've got better than half have reported. We've only got about 7% have worked with consultation. About 52% said no. So we've got some opportunities there to be able to work with consultation. Had some questions come in. How many compliance inspections is OSHA compliance doing on local governments in a year's time?
I'm not sure what the total is. I don't talk to the compliance side a whole lot, even though they're right across the cubicle wall from me. However, I know for the past at least 2 years they've had an emphasis program trying to get around the entire state to every city, and they've been slowly working on that because they spend most of their time over there looking at accidents and complaint inspections. I'd say 95% of their time is spent on those two things. And so when they get around to it, then they send somebody out to go look at a city. And I think after they get through with all the cities, they're going to be looking at counties. So they're slowly working on it. I have heard occasionally the compliance officer will come over and say, hey, you really need to go work with this city because they're clueless. And that's very nice of the compliance officer to come over and tell me that. However, I can't just go and say, hey, you should work with me because you're clueless. I wouldn't say that anyway, but I have to be invited by the city. I can't just show up like the compliance people do. So it's interesting for them to come and tell me that, but I can't just go and say, you know, to cities, come and work with me. I do occasionally when I don't have anything else to do, or on the way to other things, I will drop by cities and hand them my brochure because a lot of times they don't even know about me. But that's about as much promotion as I do, other than doing things like this webinar. So you may not have even heard that this service is available.
All right, thanks, Evelyn. Just from the trust standpoint, what we've experienced is that number OSHA compliance is getting out to visit a significant number of the cities, and even down to the very small organizations. Had you know, some information come in. Hey, can you help us with this program or that? And we're always happy to do whatever we can to help out that way. But we do see that moving through the local governments, and so it's really important that we get ahead of this, not just because there might be a compliance inspection coming, but really to protect our employees' health.
So another thing about compliance is they can issue you a citation, but they really have some constraints on them about how much they can help you. They can tell you what's wrong, but they can't really tell you what to do about it. And that seems ironic, but that's how compliance is set up. They get into the problems if they start recommending stuff to do, because they found in the past when they try to start helping employers, it backfires on them and they end up in court defending stuff. So Evelyn,
just for clarification on this, so if you go out and you give some recommendations, or you do an evaluation of their facility, are they obligated to address each of those?
So when consultation comes out to work with an employer, and this is, by the way, true of private employers also. There are 6 other people in my office that work with private companies and no public companies. I'm the only one that works with public companies. When we come out, they agree that if we find any serious hazards, they agree to fix them. Mm-hmm. And we work with people on the due dates. There have been some cities that I've worked with over more than a year, because we realized that, especially in the local government type of an arena, you don't have money just sitting around that you can do some of these things. And some of the things that we recommend don't cost money. It just means doing things something different. Other things we recommend, because it is against OSHA code, do take money. For instance, if you are required to put a mezzanine railing on a mezzanine, that's going to take some money. So one of the things with the public sector, we have to work through the funding you know, putting it towards the body that has to make the decision, and then that decision-making body has to appropriate, all that kind of stuff. We work with people on the timeline of when it's due, but you do have to agree to fix any problems we see. And we only point out the problems that are actually OSHA code problems. There are other things that I see when I'm out there, and if I see an issue that I know is not under OSHA code, but it's under something else, I will usually mention it to people, because my background actually is in insurance, commercial lines inspections. And I see things that I would have pointed out to them when I worked in that industry, but I don't write it up in my report because it's not an OSHA issue. So I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what the advice that we'll give our members most of the time is if you intend to deal with Utah OSHA consultation, to have Doug, Lance, or myself come out and do a preliminary risk assessment and give you some ideas, you know, and point out a lot of that low-hanging fruit, so your list isn't too long when Evelyn comes out, because there is that obligation that you take care of those. So we can help you point those out, and then you can pass with flying colors when Evelyn comes out if you've taken care of all those things. So, all right, just Doug and Lance, did you have any questions come in on your side of things?
No, we didn't have any questions come up here.
I was actually just checking to see if Lance was still awake.
I'm only seeing what Lance sees.
Oh, okay. So you've got all that there. Well, very good. We'll give people one more chance to type a question into their chat box. Seeing, well, we'll wait for just 1 second. Doug, Lance, did you have anything to add? Sorry, I've kind of dominated the conversation.
I was just hoping Evelyn might just, you know, in her opinion, share with us what might be some of the best benefits that we receive from Utah OSHA. Is this the piece that she does? You know, of course, if she says something besides what she does, then maybe she doesn't give someone else her job or something. But what do you think, Evelyn? What do you think is the best piece that our members should look forward to and really utilize with the Utah OSHA services that are provided?
There are a lot of times when I go out and work with public sector that they didn't realize that something they were doing or the way they were doing it was subject to an OSHA standard. It's really tough to keep up with OSHA standards. I've been in the office since 2000. I spent 7.5 years as a compliance officer, and the rest of the time I've been working with public sector OSHA. A lot of standards just are not understood or known by many public employers. And so I think a value that we have is that we help you become aware of what applies to you. The whole book usually doesn't apply, but also even OSHA's change. For instance, the most recent change is the new hazard communication standard, and most employers, even now, haven't realized that they had a deadline that passed December, that standard, to train all their employees about that new standard. So I think a big value is just, you know, a way of keeping up with what OSHA does and changes that come along, and knowing what actually applies in your instance. And having been in the insurance sector, when I used to do insurance inspections, we knew about OSHA standards and were aware of them, but not as detailed aware of them as I am now. And the insurance inspection is a great thing to do because it looks at so many other things that OSHA does not look at. And many OSHA compliance officers are not even aware of the things that you would want to be looking at in your commercial insurance inspection. However, on the other side, with OSHA codes and things, we look at things that a lot of commercial insurance inspectors are not detailed aware of. So they're complementary rather than competing. Another thing that I do, and I've been doing a lot of lately, is I've been teaching a lot. I can do classes on any OSHA topic that there is. Usually the classes are in an hour segment. I also can do things like what I was doing with West Jordan last week, which is teaching a 10-hour class. And I've even taught 30-hour classes in some places in Utah. So it just depends on what it is that you need and what you want help with.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And all of these are free.
Great. Just one other question, just to wrap up. Could you give us just a few of the most common violations that you've seen in local governments?
The most common violations in local governments, I would say, have to do with their small machine equipment in shops, specifically grinder issues. Also the issues with mezzanines and guardrails, fall protection, those kinds of things. Trying to think of anything that's really common other than that.
Probably confined space.
Record-keeping issues are pretty common. OSHA's 1904 standard requires all employers that have 10 or more employees to keep records of serious injuries, accidents, and deaths. And a lot of local government employers don't realize that that applies to them too. Yeah, hazard communication, especially right now with this new standard being phased in, that one, most people don't realize they already missed the first deadline. And so they're kind of scrambling to catch up.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much, Evelyn. I really appreciate that. And I know our members out there are grateful for you to come in and give them a bit of an idea. And looking at the poll results, it looks like we've got plenty of opportunities out there for people to get involved and give you a call. And like we said, if you want to have Doug Lance or myself come out and give you pre-inspection and give you an idea of what you can work on ahead of Evelyn's visit, we can do that. We would love to help you out with that as much as we can. Question was, what was the deadline we missed? And that was on the OSHA hazard communication standard. And hopefully you didn't miss that. We went around and did a tour doing some training around the state. That's the new hazard communication. All employees had to be trained up by December 1st of last year. And if you happen to miss that, please talk to Doug Lance or myself, and we can get you information on that. We've got some boilerplates and some training materials to help you out in getting in compliance with that one.
And if you go on to the Utah OSHA website, I find it by going on to the State of Utah government agencies under Labor Commission. We're part of the Labor Commission. If you go onto the Utah OSHA website, we actually have a link to a video that's about 20 minutes long that the consultation group in Maine, of all places, state of Maine, they put together a pretty cool video that's only about 20 minutes long, and that would, if you showed that to your employees, that would constitute their training. And it's free and it's on our website.
Great. We'll get that link from you, Evelyn, and we'll send that out today with the link to this webinar recording. So great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Looks like we're right on our 45 minutes. We appreciate your attendance, everyone. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Evelyn, or her contact information is on the screen there. And if not, talk to Doug Lance and myself about any other questions you have. And please, everybody, go out and have a safe day.
For sure.
All right, I'm closing up the recording.